without wasting time, I'm going to invite the director of the Health of Mother Earth Foundation, Comrade Nnimmo Bassey, is going to give us his welcome words and also set the tone for this meeting. I always like it when he sets the tone, because it's like, it says it's like for us Christians, spiritual atmosphere, everything, it's called to order and we know the way to proceed. Like I said, he's the director of Health of Mother Earth Foundation. It sits on the boards of many foundations and organizations. He's one of the directors of the Livelihood Award. And in fact, if I want to go to introduce him, we won't leave, and he doesn't even like introductions. And so, without much ado, please, ladies, gentlemen, comrades, friends, allies, I hope there are no foes or enemies in this chat room or in any of the rooms. Let's welcome. You can just wave, Comrade Nnimmo Bassey. Welcome. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Marianne, and thank you, Joyce, for putting this together. It's a very important webinar and dialogue. We prefer to call it dialogue because we want to share ideas. And I want to thank the panelists, Lindsay, all the way from South Africa, Tatfeng from Uyo, I believe, and Jackie, who should be joining us shortly. Just a few words to welcome us to this meeting, to set the tone as Marianne asked me to do. A few days ago, I watched a short video produced by the North African Food Sovereignty Alliance, North African Network for Food Sovereignty. And they called it coronavirus, something coronavirus related, the video showing the solution, how to handle coronavirus. And what I learned from that video, which you can see on YouTube or on Facebook, is that we need to understand something before we can tackle it. You need to understand the basis, the source of a problem before you can tackle it. Otherwise, you look at the symptoms and wasting all your time and energy. So the video showed how industrial agriculture and the pursuit of profit have unrelentingly eaten away at natural habitats, displacing both humans and animal species. So some of those animals are natural hosts to pathogens, as you've heard over and over again, but these pathogens are harmful to humans. And it's clear that if we don't stop interfering with biodiversity, interfering with nature, then we're never going to sort out the problems. We're going to have more pandemics and more problems in the future. So we also have to connect this conversation with climate change and many other problems. Industrial agriculture itself causes 80% of the deforestation we're seeing in the world today. It promotes land grabs, displaces family farmers and communities, and we just can't ignore this fact that what we think is producing food for us is actually displacing people, destroying livelihoods, and causing a lot of problems in the world today. Now, the pandemic, permit me to keep mentioning the pandemic because it's a time for us to really think about how we relate to nature, how we relate to our food, and how we must relate to what we do going forward. Now, a number of persons across the world have taken to gardening, because not just because they don't have anything else to do, but because they've been forced to reflect more on how they relate to the environment around them. I'm one of such people. I've taken to farming, to gardening, and it's become a routine. And I've got to see this as a positive outcome of the lockdown. Some of us don't know how crops are grown. We don't pay attention to how they grow. But nature really gives us to have great connection with crops, with the things around us. And it gives us the pleasure of knowing that what we are eating is wholesome and would not eat us. So connecting with nature and eating natural food is a very important way to build resilience, even against COVID-19. Because your immune system is okay if your health is fine, you are eating the right kind of food, food becomes almost like medicine to you. But now, those who promote genetically modified crops, which you are going to hear about, as this meeting, as this dialogue continues. They tell us that, well, you know, GMOs are things that you can choose or reject. But we've always said that in the context of Africa, in the context of Nigeria, we don't have a choice because we can't label GMOs considering our social context, considering how we produce our food, considering how we sell our food, and considering how we eat our food. I listened to a webinar yesterday where the Director General of the Nigerian Biosafety Management, National Biosafety Management Agency of Nigeria said, we don't regulate chemicals. Can you imagine that? He said, we don't regulate chemicals when he was asked about the increase in the use of toxic chemicals in the cultivation of crops. And there's some crops who are designed specifically for the application of these chemicals. And there are causing untold health impacts across in the areas of the world where those crops are cultivated. So to tell us you are not interested, you don't regulate chemicals, you don't care what chemicals farmers use, as long as they use GMO crops, they don't really care, and that labeling will make people choose. This is just a crass insult on Nigerians and a crass refusal to understand our food systems, totally objectionable. And we think that kind of response on a public space is obnoxious. Now, food is not a mechanical or chemical product from a factory or laboratory, and eating is a celebration. Don't you agree with me? Eating is a major celebration. It has deep cultural and spiritual anchors with special significance in many religious observances. In Nigeria and across the continent, communities thrive in maintaining their biodiversity because this is what gives us the diversity of foods that we eat. And this is what actually gives us our stories. This is what gives us our songs in the communities. This is what gives us life. And because we engage in mixed cropping, which GMOs don't promote, we harvest a mix of fruits, tubers, vegetables, and all the things that just make life worth living, that makes quality life worth living. So we have to continually also consider the way we preserve our seeds in our communities. We preserve our seeds, we select the best, preserve them, we share them. We don't label our seeds. We don't have patent to life because life is not created by men. Life is not generated in the laboratory. And these are some of the things that we need to keep in mind when we talk about safety, when we talk about genetic engineering, when we're talking about artificial foods. You know, one of the things that makes people think that labeling, regulators and promoters think that labeling is enough is the industrial mindset. The industrial capitalist mindset has actually driven the world to the brink. And that mindset would take the world to where we don't want to go. And this kind of mindset that if I want to buy something, I'll go check the label, is a disconnect between people and food producers, between people and farmers, between people and food. And so this is a distancing. It's not a social distance because of COVID. This is the artificial distance created by industrial agriculture between consumers and farmers. And that is why those farmers who don't own those industrial farms end up being sharecroppers or even slaves on farms. So my concluding thoughts include the fact that the claim that biosafety regulators are not concerned about what chemicals are unleashed on our farms and general environment is an unacceptable insult. I just needed to repeat that. It's a big insult. Now, in 2008, 400 experts from 110 countries they were considered into a body called International Assessment of Agricultural Knowledge, Science and Technology for Development, ISTAD. And they produced a document called Agriculture at Crossroads. That document shows clearly that we need to, if we are going to meet our food needs, maintain our health, maintain our rural economies, maintain our nutrition, reduce hunger, facilitate social and environmental sustainability, we need to do things in a different way. We need to go back to nature. We need to grow crops in a sustainable manner. We need to run away from destructive chemicals. And this was also agreed to by the Food and Agricultural Organization in 2014, when they endorsed agroecology as a key element of the food system. Agroecology helps us to meet many sustainable development goals. including the one of eradication of poverty, that of hunger, which is number 2, ensuring quality education, number 4. Quality education includes knowing our environment, knowing our food, achieving gender equality, increasing water use efficiency, and so on and so forth. Of course, halting the loss of biodiversity. Now, we all know that COVID-19 is an opportunistic disease. There are grave sicknesses in persons who have underlying health conditions. Now, underlying health conditions abound in terms of where there's biodiversity, erosion, and pollution. And eating unhealthy foods grown with toxic chemicals, consuming insecticides, including crops engineered to kill pests, is certainly a way of aggravating our health conditions and making us more vulnerable to diseases such as the ones we are carried by the coronavirus. So finally, the destruction of natural crops and foods is equal to the sowing of seeds of intergenerational crimes. And this is why we're talking to young people. It's an urgent issue for youths to equip themselves, equip yourself with knowledge, speak up, reject efforts to entrench systems that would destroy the gains of viable, culturally and ecologically appropriate agricultural and food systems developed by our ancestors. And if you surrender your food system to pretentious merchants and warrant chiefs who represent them, you are just permitting them to enthrone food colonialism. So we must all stand against food colonialism, and I believe that we're going to receive the tools to do this through the course of this dialogue. Thank you and welcome.